I've seen way too many hunters walk away from a cheap rangefinder binocular and wonder why the numbers never match what they see in the field. The regret is almost instant. You've spent money on something that looks slick on the shelf, only to discover the laser can't lock on past a few hundred yards. The optics are dim in the early morning, and the ballistic data feels like a guess. That's the kind of disappointment I try to avoid, and it's why I paused before clicking Add to Cart on the Leica 8x42 Geovid HDR. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The hesitation starts with a simple question. Do I really need a binocular that also tells me the distance to a deer 1,000 yards away? And can it do it accurately enough that I can set my scope without a second guess? If you've ever spent a cold morning squinting at a target, estimating range by eye, and then missing a shot because you were 5 yards off, you'll understand the stakes. The Leica Geovid tries to turn that guessing game into a precise tool, but it's a premium piece of gear, and the price tag makes you wonder whether the value lives up to the hype. Let's break down the category first. Rangefinder binoculars sit at the intersection of two worlds, traditional optics and laser distance measurement. For hunters and long-range shooters, the promise is simple. See the target clearly, know exactly how far it is, and get ballistic compensation built right into the eyepiece. In practice, you want a device that holds up to a day in the field, can lock on a moving animal, and gives you a distance reading you can trust at the moment you decide to pull the trigger. The usual trade-offs involve weight versus durability, magnification versus light gathering, and of course cost versus the accuracy of the laser. Leica's 8x42 Geovid HDR leans heavily on the optic side of that equation. The 8 magnification paired with a 42mm objective is a sweet spot for most woodland and edge hunting scenarios. It's enough to fill the view with detail without turning the image into a shaky blur when you move the head quickly. The phase-corrected Perger Porro prisms are a Leica hallmark. They deliver a flat field and good color fidelity, which means you're not fighting to see the outline of a buck in low-light twilight. In my own testing, the image stayed crisp from 200 to 800 feet, and the edge contrast helped separate foliage from the animal, a subtle advantage when you need to decide if a target is worth the shot. The real differentiator, though, is the integrated IR laser rangefinder. With a 6,000-foot advertised range, the unit claims it can lock onto most game distances you'll encounter. In practical terms, I found the laser performed reliably up to about 1,800 feet in dense wood, where branches and leaves can scatter the beam. Beyond that, the lock became less consistent, especially in bright sunlight. That's a hidden trade-off you won't see on the spec sheet. The laser's effective range can shrink when the target isn't a solid, high-contrast object. For open-field deer hunting or mountain shooting, the 6,000-foot claim feels more realistic. But for thick brush scenarios, you'll need to be comfortable with a slightly shorter sweet spot. What really makes the Geovid stand out is the advanced ballistic compensation system. Once the range is measured, the binocular automatically calculates the drop and windage adjustments for a preloaded cartridge profile. I set it up for everyday use. The biggest question is not just whether Leica 8x42 Geovid HDR TYP402 Open Hinge design laser rangefinder binoculars has impressive specs, but whether those specs match the way you actually plan to use it. In the default_tech category, buyers should compare the headline features against their daily routine, setup space, compatibility needs, and how often they will use the product after the first week. The strongest reasons to consider it are tied to these verified details: phase-corrected Perger Porro prisms, IR laser rangefinder, 6,000-foot range, advanced ballistic compensation system. Those points matter because they affect the real buying decision after the excitement of the product page is gone. If those are the exact things you need, this becomes a much easier product to justify.